library book discussion group. I'm so happy to see all of you today in this weather to brave coming here. You all deserve a hand, and especially the 6 speakers who are so nice in coming here. Thank you. We have a terrific program today. Rising. We have this in the library. One of the people took it out last week, one of our members. South Mountain-Watchung poets. You have some of them here. They will read their poetry. It should be a wonderful day, and I really am thankful that you all came out today. Before we begin, I have a few announcements to make. Let me thank Jack for setting up the chairs and always helping me. And this Sunday is his birthday. We wish him a happy birthday. 17. 17, that's it.
No longer sweet 35.
And we're very thankful, Jack, and happy birthday anymore. And Ben Korn for coming from Columbia High School today, leaving school to come take this so it could be seen again and again. Thank you. And before this South Orange Library is running a special program January 30th and 31st, Monday and Tuesday, from 9 to 4. Tax questions, free income tax assistance from New Jersey Division of Taxation and the IRS. So will be held upstairs. If you have any tax questions, please come this Monday and Tuesday, January 30th and 31st. I'm so happy that Doris brought some of these books. If any of you are interested, they're on the side. They're $5. They're worth it. And I just wanted to tell you, so at the end of the meeting, you could see Doris. And being that when I asked Doris to come speak here, I love the books, the poetry. She wasn't sure who would be coming, so I said, okay, fine. We'll let Doris introduce the rest of the poets, and let us begin. Thank you so much, Doris.
Well, that's quite an introduction. Hi, I'm Doris Rados, and I'm awfully glad you came here on this rather dull day. And when I first came to the library to talk about, to bring a copy of Rising, I got to talk to Mrs. Cowell, and I asked her if we could have a reading here. But I never expected such a tremendous number of people to come. It really is great. The South Mountain poets, Watchung poets, came into being, I think, about 5 years ago, Gertrude? Mm-hmm. Right. And we meet in the homes of members twice a month to review, to critique, and to analyze our writing. As individuals, we come from varied backgrounds. I'm a teacher, Ted's a lawyer, Sondra's a writer, Gertrude is a writer, and Jack, I guess, from the business community. Yes, he was. This volume was published 2 years ago this spring, and it's the result of the work of 17 writers who are a member of our group. It was sponsored by the Union County Cultural Commission and the New Jersey Council on the Arts. And as you were told, you can obtain a copy of it. We'll read some selections from Rising as well as some from other things that we can produce. And I'm going to introduce the poets to you alphabetically. Jack Belkin, tell something about yourself while you're at it.
Let's see. I graduated from Cleveland High School in New York.
Jack.
Oh. Hello. Hello. I graduated from high school in New York in 1935 and got a job pushing garment racks. And so on. And let's see, then in 1940 I went to sea and stayed there till 1957. During that time I amassed a wife and a daughter who was born in 1950. And after that, I went to work for Western Electric, and for 9 years. I'm trying to figure out the arithmetic, but it's not. I left out the divorce, but I got married again in 1962. And pardon me? Want to begin? Don't you want to hear the story of my life?
I'd like to, Jack. Tell us about the specialized work you did. You were more or less self-employed.
Yes, I was.
Highly specialized work you did.
I was more, not less. Come to think of it, I still have all this stationery, so you can see what it does. Industrial advertising, public relations. At any rate, for a variety of reasons, I no longer do it. I retired, and now let me start reading.
Did you always write poetry?
Always?
He didn't write it, he said it.
He said it. Okay.
What did you do at
He's my cousin, that's why.
Oh, good.
All righty. Title of the first poem that I'm reading is Forget Me Not, Forget Me. Surely my death, at least to me, would be as great a tragedy as the bombing of Pearl Harbor, on which occasion our noble nation shouted, "Remember!" Do I not then also have the right to be remembered? To hear them declare he was the noblest of them all? They are more likely to say, if they say anything, he was the noblest Jack Belkin of them all, which isn't saying much. And do I really want to be beatified and sanctified and have kids get off from school on Belkin's Day? Not really. Better rather to stow my beery body in a pine box and put in 2 quarters, inflation, you know, to cover my eyes. Better still, put in nothing. Metaphor for a life in which little was ventured and nothing gained except weight. Next one is Homeboy.
That was wonderful.
Be it ever so humble, said John Payne, the stumblebum, there's no place like home. Home, said Eliot, is where the heart is. Home meant roots, celebrating, getting together for weddings, bar mitzvahs, Passover. Home meant love, pretending to live the family romance as though it weren't already dead and buried. Home, said George Raft in some forgettable film, is where I hang my hat. And I thought, how insensitive and unfeeling of him. Home, insensitive, unfeeling Jack Belkin feels these days, is where I can lock the door, take off my clothes and my emotional corsets, and keep the whole goddamn world out. Which is happening a lot more often than it used to, and bothers me a lot less. Yom Kippur. I am the beast who beats my breast, for I have sinned. Adultery, buggery, concupiscence, debauchery, all the letters of my alphabet stuffed with sordid sagas of sin. I was a beast of prey. Today, a beast of prayer. I pray you, O Lord, judge me not by my sins, or I shall sin again. Title of this is the love that dares not speak its name. I have loved often and well and wisely. So longevity has never been the hallmark of my tangled amours. I could always sense the strain of vice that lurked beneath the skin-deep virtues of my partners. But one love affair has long endured, my love for myself. And this love, being blind, sees only perfection, with a no-fault perception that recognizes the true beauty hidden beneath my veil of modesty. I told you I went to sea. I went to sea as a radio operator. And when we began to talk in words rather than in one of the ways we used to call distress was Mayday. And it comes after the French M''AIDER, means to help me. Help. But when we write it, it's spelled Mayday. I guess the left-wingers wouldn't complain. And it deals with a lady friend of mine. Our love, often found wanting, yet always wanted, is dead. And I am forlorn. Oh, I know the sinking feeling can't last forever. Time heals. Perhaps by May, my dreams will stop acting out the old script and start listening to reason. Then I will transplant my heart in someone else. Oh, perhaps in May, but not yet. Not yet. Later, by the way. I have it where it is. Are you ready? I mean, I can keep going.
They're wonderful. You get such a I feel like I know you already.
Next reader will be Sondra Gash.
I hope my poems will tell you something about me. So I'll let them speak for themselves. And this one goes back to my childhood. Can you hear me? No. I'll try to speak louder, project more. This poem goes back to my childhood. It's called Winter Remnants, Patterson, 1948. It's winter again, and I am a girl back in the railroad flat where my grandparents lived in the crowded dusk of the ghetto on Bridge Street near the river. Fridays, late afternoons, I come from school and stand shyly at the entrance to the front room, warmed by the hissing radiator, the bolts of woolen goods that line the walls. Grandpa is a tailor. Over the lintel of the bay window hangs a sign in Yiddish and English. H. Godwin and Sons. We make suits. Hour after hour in the front room, Grandpa bends over the singer, glasses sliding down his nose, fingers guiding the cloth. Grandpa is quiet. In the soft, tawny light, his foot rhythmically pedals, his long, drooping torso one with the machine. I'm slightly afraid of him. The tribal, bearded face, grave and bushy brows, the way he barely looks at me. He speaks few words in English, hands me a needle, shows me how to loop it back and forth. My father never learned to sew, but I sew buttons onto coats, big men's buttons with heavy thread and thimble. Grandpa lets me press pleats in pants. I like the moist odor of wool, absorbing warmth as it steams through the iron, heat ticking up behind locked walls. The front room filled with flannels, Melton, tweed, and gabardine, cuttings and swatches on the floor. Men's breath, men's talk, men's trousers. When customers come for fittings, he shoos me to the back room. In those days, a caravan of gypsies camped along the river. Once I went with Grandpa to a gypsy rag dealer who sold him cloth from a horse-drawn wagon. Once, Grandpa made me a wool vest with a red silk lining. This is a poem about my daughter who spent a year in London as a college girl. Daughter in London. Suddenly, she is beautiful, walking toward us at Gatwick, emerald eyes flecked with purple, silk pants ballooning out like dreams. She is pleased with herself in her short man's coat, circa 1920, herringbone tweed from Petticoat Lane. Your grandfather wore the same kind of coat when he came from Russia, I said as we linked arms. Gussied up Ellis Island. Her tendrils unfurl in this gray place. Her walk is springier. There is a new breeze in her smile. My daughter here looks like a virgin island, lush green hills unsullied. Once she climbed the school bus, too small to see out the window. Now this leap across space, this separation. She is dreaming of going to Russia. She is running away with a bassoonist from Paris. She wears pointy suede shoes, a crown of dark curls. She is a room filled with green language. This is a poem for my parents, and it was at their 50th anniversary party. I think it applies to all long marriages. Anniversary couple. Once, when I was young, I fell out of a dream and found them spinning in the living room. The only light, the glow of the radio console, begin playing softly. Now, they waltz on the wide, polished floor. They smile as he dips her in a graceful arc. The orchestra soars. Everyone claps. How they have lasted. She, soft and blonde, her movements supple. He, leading her smoothly, dapper at 75. Like battle comrades, the way they've endured the strife of long marriage, yet still feel affection. Do they forget all the silences, absences, rages? How he never listened? How she went on droning their feud? Sometimes, when she was angry, he slept on a thin army cot. She packed his clothes and sent him away. He did not call, though she waited and waited. 50 years of the same argument. I sit in the banquet hall watching as they glide in the sweeping steps of a tango. How they dovetail. I lift up a leaf from a vase on the table. It reminds me of them. Opposites joined, a front and a back pressed together. She, the dull, veiny underside, where form is revealed. He, glossy, green, laminate, exposed to the elements. His need for space, hers for closure. Now he twirls her like a girl, pulls her in again, presses her to him as everyone gazes. Ah, the anniversary couple. So what is this argument repeated for a lifetime that holds them together? difficult to visit him. It was difficult to make contact. It was a very exciting experience. And this poem comes out of that. Crossing boundaries. In Leningrad, the light is diamond on the Neva. Lapis and gold in the palace of czars. We are tourists, bussed from icon to icon. At night, I whisper into a phone. Are you near? At the hotel. Come now, but don't give the address. A taxi winds through the maze, leaves us on Podgorny, 2 blocks from his home. We walk through shadows of footsteps. Fragments of the 14th century fall from buildings. Remnants twist down to the street. He opens the door. It's a small room with a wall of worn books, a tray of dark bread. Lingonberry jam he has waited to share. He takes pleasure in serving us. Words fly, some in Yiddish, our lost mother tongue, stories of Minsk, Dachau. He pours tea, chinik on the table. All night, our questions, Ilya's. He was a scientist once, wrote for the academy. Now he's a chimney sweep. Alone in this room, he taught himself Hebrew and English. His journey with words. He is hungry for news. Afghanistan, Vietnam. His home was wired. Years of beating and jail. But he's cheerful. He won't hide or whisper. His windows are open. He is emptied of lies. Nights pass. We leave. But he waits to cross borders. In a dream, I take Ilya home with me. Give him clean towels aired in the sun, journals and books, a lamp to read by. In our synagogue, he wears a yarmulke, a fringed prayer shawl. In a dream, he climbs from the chimney into the light, stands on a rooftop in Leningrad, brushing soot from his face. His arms become wings. He is flying away with his flock, like Chagall floating over the streets of Vitebsk.
I told the audience they're happy to come today. It's
I hope so.
poetry.
The next reader will be Gertrude Halstead. Gertrude Halstead.
I should say that in the back of our book, Rising, are short biographies, so you can look us up. My name is Gertrude Halstead. And I won't introduce myself any further. I'll start out with one of the pieces. Can you hear me? Or should I speak louder? Louder yet? All right, I'll try.
It doesn't work. We have a microphone.
You have a microphone, but
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
work.
not
All
working
right.
properly.
I'll try and read as loud as I can. I begin with a piece called Flight. It is part dream, part happening a long time ago. It's a piece that's rather difficult for me to read, but I will try. On the train, you had left me a message, scrawled across brown paper wrapping, hung like an empty garment bag, hooked in the baggage net overhead. It all seemed upside down. No safety from that direction. I could not reach anyway, having inch by inch shrunken into myself, now pacing the moving compartment, swaying upside down, no safety in any direction. The next one is a short kite poem. We as a family enjoy to fly kites.
We couldn't hear that.
We enjoy to fly kites.
Oh.
And I have a short piece. My kite is blue. Its yellow eyes dart space. daring me to let go. I was watching a documentary, George Segal doing his sculpture. I call it progression. Can you hear me now? There it is, 2 o'clock, the sun gone, the bed unmade, the white simplicity of empty sheets stretched smooth, sentences take shape. This one was written after a walk, late fall. I don't have a title yet. I don't even have it typed. It is late afternoon, walking. I look down, half covered under my left foot, a yellow mitten leaf, a child's, barely. Brown-edged where small fingers fit, a lemon yellow palm, the wrist still green, the supple stem a vibrant red. I left it there to its own aging. The next one I wrote after a slight argument. I call it clockwork. Throw her out, you said. She is not working. I looked at her face, her hands. I had looked up at her for 24 years, twice 12. She was my time, framed in brown. She was part of my every second. I had looked to her for mealtime, school time, endless appointed time. Will I be late? Her hands still. Watercolor in the mirror at the dentist. It was written after I had been at the dentist. Can't feel half my face. High wine drill still in my ear. A painting in the mirror fills the wall behind me. Pale watercolor, beach bleached, sand dunes between tufts of beach grass, sand under my toes, salt taste, long picket fence, gray, crooked old teeth, points gone, pickets gone. The wind out here, houses hide in dune hollows. Only the topmost windows face the sea. I could live here. All right, this is in a lighter vein. There are 13 flowers and 1 butterfly in the next one. I call it summer fantasy. This summer, I take stock, sew bachelor buttons on my morning cloak with everlasting colors. Find time, balm in patience by 4 o'clock. Feel early morning glory. Watch sun and moon flower. Touch silver dollars. Sense sage brush my hand. Pick yellow petals. He loves me. He loves me not.
Thank you. The next reader will be Ted Matt.
Just be
Can you tell us about yourself, Ted, or are you going to fade through the words?
Let me start with what I've got here. I think that does a better job.
Okay.
The first 2 poems I'm going to read are really travel poems, but, you know, the travel is interior perhaps more than it is exterior. The first one is entitled Visit to Drombeg, and Drombeg is not a place anymore. 5,000 years ago, it was a Neolithic community in central Germany. The between skin and stone, between the surface of the palms of your hands pressed flat and the slightly grainy surface of the tomb, between the slightly oily film on your fingers, your pores' residues, and the slowly eroding softness of the granitic cenotaph, there remain spaces, openness. Press hard. Squeeze flesh into crevice until live and dead seem extinguishable. There will be no force so great that decaying life may bond to the fragility of death. Step out of your hands, away from the standing stone, and into that mysterious sanctuary between. Nothing will mitigate its plenitude, its spaciousness, or its unbelief. Between your hand and the rock, close held, there is room for everything. The space between hand and stone, between life and death, that steady mean among all opposites from which transcendence comes, where even the mockingbird is silent, strangely so. And the dogs welcome your touch in their grail land, inevitably possessed by the interpenetration of stars, lit by inextinguishable candles, rows upon rows, illuminating the loaves of unspendable grain, the horns of unquenchable mead. There is both tomb and home and womb which we never left, and so must need never find. Here is where Eckhart longed to be, removed from Latin sic et non, as far as prehistoric dolmen is from Spanish steel. Here an apple, green upon the bough, red blushed, awaits the hand, the rock that makes strong ciders flow into our tongue's cup. What priestly victories this place sings, massed chanting, processing in druidic circles round druidic stones, as if Christ himself were in their midst, and Peter yet again sacrificed upon his own stubborn fears, but energized, confident, triumphant. As Thomas said, no doubt this end comes as its own beginning. When and where hand meet rock, their magnetism not rejected. What music plays for such singing? A note, not flute, not harp, not viol, human, not laryngeal, clean, unmuted, yet warm, feminine, like small, tightly tied drums, wrapped by thumb knuckle at the edge, toned by leather wrapped on stick until a comprehensive echo forever resonates through every tree, ear, every wave, down into the magic well's depths until it cannot stop hearing itself. As the bird listens for its own song, patiently springing from a nearby branch, I'm here, I'm really here, I'm forever here. There are no regrets at having heard a bird singing after a sudden rain, his sun-flooded voice lifting from a eucalyptus branch into forever. This, that, without illusion, remains impaled, even at the end on the crucifix of time, where the tree's long day stands still, transpiring tears of forgetfulness all around, drawn from earth root, rock spring, through coiled limb towards its fluttering evanescent leaves. Thunder, electricity, hurled upon the tree, shatter yet another prophet, another answer to the unrememberable question. Split another chord of sky song, wind song, into a silence trembling to be heard. Second poem is entitled Pompeii, and those of you who have been there, I think, will recognize it. It's in 4 parts. The first part is called doulos, which is the Greek word for slave. The second part is called kane, which is the Latin word for dog. The third is penates, which is the Latin word for the home deities, personal deities. And the last section is called hodie, which means today. Doulos. Sprawling across the marble doorstep, the freed slave had taken his place amid the mosaic ostrich and swan, alternating, advancing, static. He nursed his rational hopes of being noticed by his mistress, perhaps as she sailed to market with her cloud of tempting maids, or as she came to the great portal to review the passing throng, and turning back to reassure herself that all was right at home, the fountains running, flowers, the offerings in place, all neat, ostentatious in a decent Roman way, and so reassured to smile at him, loosening her golden belt, exposing her breasts as a challenge, as a planned impropriety, that he might earn his bread soup, a piece of fowl, and a good portion of wine to start the day in suburban Pompeii.
It's a start.
Kane. She knew her place, the second columnar courtyard from which her bewailing voice could be heard out at the entrance gate and within to the apartments, workstations, and truck gardens beyond. In her way, her jewel-studded collar was the navel of the universe. Only she knew and obeyed all dutiful commands that made the maelstrom of working and celebratory life there feasible. On the wall, her figure, larger than life, had been frescoed by that scruffy artisan from Ercolano, and it mounted guard while she slept, always alert, near the granary, within scent of the ovens, the oil, the wine amphory, the cutting tables. 10,000 dog generations later, she would sit in that same attentive mode by the hotel cash register in the town below the great ruins. Penates. The remote, gray, vapid deities may know the future, laugh at mortals' plans and expectations, plot frustrations and enigmas. We are too small, multicolored, too tactile, as all household gods must be, to go beyond one day. The wheels of Juno's chariot dig deep trenches in the stone streets, but for us, the blossoming atrium is brushed only by soft sandals, bringing the due portions of favor. We hear the deep-throated rumblings. We understand that earth within earth burns a forger's fire. And if our shrines are cindered and our devotees frozen forever in egregious stances of death, we realize that no further oblation will come to us, no dignity of sacred fire, that we, like them, will learn suspense forever. The last section, hodie. One by one, the urban refugees moved in. At first, cardboard and plywood closed off the open roofs. Later, good roof trees, ovens relit, billboards for the American circus plastered alongside the huntress mosaic, and sound, voice music, tools working, barely functional motorbikes chugging the perfect gridways repopulated Pompeii. The hotel dog returned to her kingdom as if it were yesterday. The tourists left, offended by the human smells, the press and busyness of survival. Another Mediterranean woman invited another hungry Priapus to dance, and their stomping awoke the gods to laughter, to smell the brewing Yili Cafe, to accept the maritime risotto, to accept the hibiscus vase, rough painted with a dark image of great Vesuvius's eternal scorn.
Thank you, Ted. Well, I guess I'll be the last reader since my last name begins with R. I've divided my work into childhood, midlife, old age, and maybe a little bit of senility again. Middle. My house in the middle of the block, where I wanted to be, near the corner candy store. The middle of a candy bar, torn in three. You right, he left. I got center, too small to see. The middle slice of collar when my father took the piece I wanted. The middle name I got, later dropped, because everyone had one. I wanted to be different. Before I was 10, transition. Before I was 10, I stayed with the boys, playing their games in the lot, batting a ball in the street, roasting Mickeys in an old oil can on cold nights. My mother thought it was a stage. I thought different, until one day there was a fight about me, about whose side I was on, whose pal I should be. When it was over, I left, went upstairs, and pulled a dress out of the closet. That day, when I came into class in the 4th grade, I wanted to be complimented by my teacher. I combed my hair as she had suggested. I wanted to be noticed by the girls. I wanted to look right as I entered the room, wearing my new glasses. As I walked to my seat, fingers joined each other. I saw owl eyes looking at me. When I reached my seat, I took my glasses off, putting them inside my desk, where they stayed for the rest of the school year. This is about my father, which I remember reading in life. Hands in pockets, shoulders bent, Harry walked, bowed by some inextricable force, to his ever-present companion. Daily, he climbed the subway steps at 14th Street, headed east to 23rd, Lee's newest mills, their building, his office, took the elevator to the 13th floor, called 12A, which opened the iron gate, proceeded to his place, corner of the hall, to a door, bearing no signs of its owner, just a film of moldy dust covering its frosted face, opening onto a space which housed a desk, a space where he spent his days earning a kind of living, filling forms for colored washcloths and fancy Christmas ribbons, a space where he wrote notes to himself and yearned for something else behind the scuff of the linoleum floors. This is about my mother, and I guess you could call it the last stage of life. Promises. I must promise to move off the back porch of my mother's house, to step down to let her see that I so long played a part in, to place perspectives in place so that presents do not press into past, packing away events perpetuated today to tomorrow, to forgive the forgivable, to forget that which I forget to forget. Morality. They say she is old, fearful. I say she weaves wily around friends and family. She pits us one against the other, making plans, conferring secrets upon some, none for others. From her bed she commands tragedy today, comedy tomorrow. I, not she, am tired now. I sleep to forget, to remember that maternity is mortal. Roots. I'm cutting everything down to the bone, my mother says, and she shows me her plants in water lined up upon the sill. Look here, she says, fingering the limp leaf. This one is still green. Taking studied steps to and from the sea, she stoops over each jar, feeding her endangered children. We don't talk much now. When we do, it's about the weather, or the movies she remembers. My well-meant concern for a change of scene is met with, I'm busy enough with my medicines to take, and lists to make. And each day goes by. This is something that actually happened in a manner of speaking outside the bank in Sunday morning. It's called For the Birds.
Could you speak a little bit? Don't
Yes.
your voice.
Yesterday, friggin' cold it was outside the bank, where I got me some bread. Saw on the ground a full course lunch, lying on its side, potato chips, Pepsi, and a ham and cheese, just sitting there with a bird, a fat one too, pecking away at that crust. Bird looked at me like to say, what kind of a cook would leave a spread like that? So I thought I'd give him a hand and unwrap the stuff. And he took a peck of me. Thank you very, very much. Our volume is over there, and thank you, yes.
As poets, everything we heard was very beautiful and sensitive. There's no question about it. But actually, what's happened to poetry with the rhyme and the rhythm that we used to have, where things would sort of correlate and I mean, as a child, if you read Trees, for instance, there's always such beauty following each sentence. This is why, if I make myself clear. Isn't that kind of poetry written anymore? Yes.
Does anybody have anything to say about that?
How about Ted?
All right.
There is really from 1913 until about 1970, if you want to call that the period of the modern period.
Yes.
Most poets felt that standard meter and verse would prevent them from being expressive in the language, in their own language. They felt that they would be locked into a kind of a false poetic language. And that's what modernism was all about. And Joyce really, Ezra Pound rather, really stands for the repudiation of it, although he himself could write beautiful rhyme metric lines if he wanted to. Most of the best poets could write in the style of Trees if they wanted to. Now, in the last 10 years, many very fine poets have begun to do it again, so that it's happening. The trouble is, one very big thing, the English language doesn't lend itself to rhyme. French and Russian rhyme, almost all words rhyme because the endings are all so similar. Whereas in English, rhyme is hard to do. Now, Shakespeare did it very well, I understand. They're trying again. In fact, the whole question of more form, even sonnet form and so on, is coming back. And some of the things that, for example, I myself write, are in strict form. But if you read them expressively, you don't hear the form. If you could see it on the page. Furthermore, one other thing about rhyme. Most poets today use rhyme all the while, but not necessarily at the end of the rhyme. It gets very plumpity-plump, plumpity-plump, plumpity-plump. If you read Goethe in German, and he was one of the greatest poets of any time, you would find after a while that where he does rhyme, that the end rhyme becomes like a thump, thump, thump. So that a lot of contemporary poetry, there's all kinds of rhyming going on inside. So that to hear something read for the first time, it's hard. If you get the book and you go through it or other things, you'll see more meter and rhyme than you think is actually there.
Is there any more?
We
There's
have
Tense rhyme.
There's also, as Tim said, there's something called internal rhyming, and I use it quite often, but you don't hear it as much as you would see it on the page.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
One more thing. You might, if you care to read from Denise Levertov's, she's a very well-known contemporary poet, her book of essays. She has a number of essays in that book that deal with the meaning and style of contemporary poetry. And she talks about modern consciousness and how we need to reflect in a more modern mode what's going on in the world today. The world was once more ordered than it is today. And most arts reflect the world as it is. So I could probably get that book at the library right here.
But wasn't what you all did really called prose?
No.
Wasn't what you all did?
Yeah.
Free verse.
Contemporary poetry, free verse.
All right.
But you're
We're fortunate we have another author.
Yes.
Oh, June, hi. I didn't realize you. That's what I was trying to. Oh, I didn't realize that. June, would you want to read now? Go. This is June Cater. She came in later. That rhymes. See? So we will finish with a rhyme.
How long do I got a whole bunch.
Well, we'll give you about 7 or 8 minutes.
What I have is a potpourri of things. Some of it written some time ago, and some of it notebook entries that I find interesting that have never been completed, and some of them were things that I consider complete. So I'll begin. The first one, I always felt a sonnet was a somber form of verse, and I wanted to try to write a somewhat humorous sonnet. It's called A Conversation. Sonnet, I said, your depth and breadth and height are less than a breadbox, and your metric feet march out of step with now. You're obsolete, but you persist. Not more, but not quite. Say, Uncle Sonnet, free verse zooms in flight, in weightless jets, but you are poured concrete. You're hard, you're soft. You must accept defeat. Go gentle now. Bid us that last good night. You think to kill me off, replied the sonnet. And classic child, revered with sons of Priam. Free verse, it's chaos. Still, I will forgive you. Where did you get this bee inside your bonnet? Whence such ill will toward such a form as I am, and I am is spelled I-A-M-B. No matter, child, through centuries, I'll outlive you. And this is a notebook entry which I rather like. It was a workshop, and the subject was, who's terrific I am. A mole tunnels random directions, mud grubber in the dark, dumb blind through earth, dumb blind to self or any worth, to dig out a soul, how long little mole. Let some magic light touch you, let you suddenly see. Now let you raise your dirty snout like a furry bird beak. Sing, sing glory hallelujah, till all secret caverns crumble. This is called Notebook Entry While in a Wacky Mood. I rhyme sometimes and I don't sometimes. Then Mary down Mary, while gaily a fairy trips out to a Broadway moon, trips and slips on the point of the gay to the depth of a red balloon. So Mary Dawn Fairy, be gay for charity, dance off to a feather in the Hudson breeze. Drink dairy-drawn cream, hear a rape victim scream, have a Frito and some port wine cheese. The Times in the morning is sure, secure, so the Post, which we toast every afternoon, while Wall Street week soothes the junkie's cheek, for Jesus will be coming soon. Oh, he'll sweep all the litter, he'll raise every critter, on beams the round Broadway moon. Then scare we down Mary and a hay, none we know. I don't know what it means. And here's a notebook entry, and I haven't the remotest idea what it means, but I find it interesting. circumstance, the cloud of time, the circle of hope. Remember the forward foot trips backward, yet forgets the pebble. Oh, glory for the pathway down into heights, balloons up to the bottom. Oh, glory for the circumstance. You can figure out what I mean. I was for a number of years in the New York school system, and there was one child that motivated this. It's called Chicken Little Lowdown. I watched them all peck you, pull out your scrawny pin feathers one by one. The scaly bald patches grow. I've seen your kind before. You're natural. But hey, little girl, your nose is running again over the whole second grade. Your pitiful whining chirps match exactly the big round goose egg on the blackboard. I know about your horrible home, but your brother's not like you. You haven't even the gumption to pull up your socks. And oh, you make me hate myself because I can't like you either. Whatever becomes of the lowliest chick.
Boy, you can almost visualize it.
This is one that also came from a workshop, and it's corny. I get very corny at times. It's called A Widow's Love Song. Wield a mean wrench, for you I pine. You're good around the house. Dear unknown sir, will you be mine? I'd have you for my spouse. And how I love you, handyman. You'd stop my toilets running. You'd plane that door, unstop that drain with all the plumbers cunning. You'd change all light bulbs hard to reach. You'd love to shovel snow. Rewire lamps and fix that switch, and oh, I love you so. For roses may be red, my dear, and violets be blue, but pliers, drill, and hammer here all wait, my love, for you. That one was. And here's one I don't consider finished, but it's kind of interesting. Now declines the spirit into shallow surges, pulled down by negatives, but yes is the word for knees with band-aids. Yes kisses bee stings and bitterness. Yes moves any unknown other to reveal by speech. Yes smiles the daisy into open face. Yes crinkles eye corners, removes wrinkles, beams into dark spaces, and slides under bolted doors of the impossible.
What, another question? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
We were about to get an explanation of what prose is. And I'd also like to know what blank verse is.
Okay, Dora?
What is
What is prose?
If it's in writing and it's not poetry, it's prose.
Usually prose tells a story. There's a narration, there's something happens. Something happens. There's an action, and usually there's relationships. That's one thing.
Well, wherefore is that different from an narrative?
Well, usually these are either philosophical observation or comment about an experience, but not an ongoing story. Usually poetry is not an ongoing story of a conflict, that sort of thing. The elements of prose are usually missing. I guess it's the way you read it. The way we give it.
It's not from an any leader.
Not prose.
No. Excuse me, yes.
Wait a minute, Ted was shaking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What is input into this?
About 2 years ago, I haven't read it. It got widely reviewed. A poet wrote a novel which is purely a extended narration in straight time form, like most novels are, entirely in poetical meter and language. I don't think the content will tell you anything.
I think usually,
Usually,
that's
right.
most unusual.
It is. That's something new, and a lot of people excoriated him for doing it, saying that all he proved was you could do something silly. if you make a big enough effort. But poetry is, in the first place, very much more compressed than in its meanings. It's much more metaphorical and elusive, and there is some prose which is so marvelously intense that you wonder whether it hasn't become poetry.
Right.
But there's no possibility of poetry ever being prose. It's the other way.
John and Dr. Harris?
I just wanted to say that one of our fine lecturers here, Professor Thomas Duff from Seton Hall University of the English Department, has read poetry to us on several occasions. And he said something to me which I hadn't realized before, that poetry is written to be read out loud. And today we haven't had one poet, we've had 6 poets read their work to us, and what a special and wonderful experience it has been.
Oh, thank you. On that note, I felt the same thing. I felt it touched a little bit of us, every one of the poems, and it was a wonderful experience for all of us. So I
Thank you for
thank
having